Day 3 on the lower Buffalo River Trail. We awoke inside a cloud there at Dillards Ferry. There was a chill in the air, so we worked quickly to get some water boiling for coffee. We decided to ease into the morning, waiting for the sun to burn off the fog and the drier tints. The weather forecast looked good for the day, sunny with a high in the 70s, so needless to say, our spirits were high. Thanks to the convenience of the vault toilet, we were able to lighten our load before heading out on the trail. We were just 14 miles deep into a 43-mile trip, so it was about time we started getting some miles done. After a short climb from Grinders, we were up on Shiny Bluff, looking out over the fields of Land Bend. The trail climbed a little higher, crossing over the Long Bottom Road, and then we were looking out over the town of Gilbert. With Shiny now to our backs. Pressing onward, the trail stays within sight of the river for a while. We then hit a utility easement and then begin switchbacking down the easement, crossing it multiple times. The trail then cuts inward. The hillsides steepen, and before we know it, we were entering in Boone Holler. We enjoy the trickling waterfall for a minute before moving on down the trail. Compared to the first 14 miles, the hills that lay in front of us are bigger and steeper. Thankfully though, it's a newer trail, so while the hills seem long, the gradients stay manageable. Gotta give a huge thanks out to the many groups that constructed this trail. They did a fine job. After climbing for a while though, we come up on a drainage that had some water, so we decided to take a well-deserved break before taking off again. We soon see the river again, and now the town of Gilbert is behind us. The trail then drops in elevation and becomes near level with the river. We soon round a small ridge where we leave the river to our left and start hiking up Bear Creek. Bear Creek was a magical place. As the Buffalo's fourth largest tributary, it's a creek that's almost more. Here the woods is open and eerie. The switchgrass grows thick, and the smell of spring was really in the air. We take off our boots and cross the river, but between the warmth of the sunlight and the chill of the stream, we had to take a moment and absorb whatever it was that made this place special. But nothing special lasts forever. So it was back in the boots and time to get on down the trail. And since we were leaving water, it could only mean one thing. Time to climb another hill. After a handful of switchbacks, we said one last goodbye to Bear Creek before rounding over the hill and saying hi to the Buffalo River and hi to the bridge piers of the old Missouri and North Arkansas Railroad. We then leave the river as the trail begins to cut inland, descending down to Bush Creek. We're now 7 miles deep for the day, so we use this opportunity to take a break, filter some water, and rehydrate before pressing on. Walking down an old fence line and through the woods, we stumble upon a funny-looking mud puddle. By George, it was full of salamander egg masses. Who would have thunk it? The trail is now at river level for a bit before cutting inward to cross an unnamed drainage. It then climbs for a while before turning back towards the river. Looking upriver, just around the bend, is Red Bluff somewhere. The trail then zigzagged up and down the hillsides. With the sun shining all day, the day got warm. With all the ups and downs, it eventually started taking its toll, so we had to stop for a little sugar pick-me-up. And yep, that's Nutella. We never backpack without it. Moving along though, the sun was finally starting to set. The trail stayed high and on the hillside. It's hard to tell, but 30 feet down, there was a sheer drop-off. It's the open exposures and its constant proximity to the river that really sets this trail apart from its upper cousin. There's just view after view after view. It was so beautiful that at times it was hard to keep from smiling, even while hiking the uphills. We rounded over another hill before starting another descent. With the shadows starting to grow long, it was about time we began thinking about setting up camp. We catch the last rays of light over the river before turning inward. Just a short ways down, we come upon Rocky Creek. It's here we're calling home for the night. With over 12 miles done for the day, we tiredly set up camp, grab some water to cook with, admire the moon as it rose, and forgoed the fire out of exhaustion. It was a good day, and now we were ready for a good night's rest. Day 4. After a quiet night, we awoke to another chilly morning. Though we knew it wouldn't be cold for long, the forecast called for clear and sunny skies along with warmer temps. First thing first though, we quickly got the coffee going, because that's the kind of people we are. And then we went on to breakfast. After taking care of some morning business, it was time to start packing up camp and getting on with the day. Heading out from Rocky Creek, we began with the climb. It started to seem to us that day that as the trail went on, the climbs continuously got steeper and steeper. Though I don't know if that's true, it may have just been that we were starting to get tired. It was day 4 after all. But we rounded over a hill, and then we got our first view of the river for the day. A little bit farther, and we came up upon Little Rocky Creek. There were some neat geological features here, but at the same time, the trail just kind of disappeared. I'm not sure what happened, but we had to backtrack to the creek, look at the map, and adjust our course a little bit before finding the next blaze. Of the 43 miles hiked, that was the only place we lost the trail, but thankfully, it didn't take much to get back on it. It was up and down for a bit after that. Over the course of 43 miles, this trail gives you just over 7,000 feet of elevation to climb. And while that sounds like a lot, in reality, no single hill was too much. Thanks again to all the volunteers and organizers who helped build and maintain this trail. We soon cut away from the river and enter Hoot Owl Holler. Here we were greeted by a little trickling cascade before coming upon and crossing over the top of a waterfall proper. I ain't sure if it has a name though, not that it makes any difference to it. But as we leave Hoot Owl Holler, we begin the long climb up the hill to the South Maumee Road. It's switchback after switchback as we leave the protected slopes and enter the higher and more exposed hillsides. We then say hi to what I think was a little earth snake. before rounding over the top of the hill. We then cross over the South Maumee Road, go a little bit farther to get away from the dust, and then we reward ourselves with a little break. That was quite the hill to climb. It's also here that we check the weather. Believe it or not, on most hilltops we were able to pick up some cell phone service. Though the last couple of days the weather had been perfect, the predicted forecast was throwing a wrench in our gears. While we originally had planned on making this a 5-day trip, the forecast now showed widespread and all-day thunderstorms for the following day. So we assessed our options and decided that an extra push to finish today would be our best bet. That meant our sore and tiring bodies had to push out a 14-mile day. Sounds like fun, right? We get moving along though. The next stretch, heading towards the Spring Creek, was another one of my favorites. The hills here seem to have grown in stature. As we cut along their sides, meandering from one bench up to the next, there were multiple waterfalls cutting into the hillside here. Here are but two, but there were more than that out there. You just gotta go find them. It was then up and down for a bit, as we made mile after mile with the trail staying near the river. After a little ways, we then turned away from the river and headed up towards Spring Creek. Where the trail crossed the creek, we took a little break, filtered some water, soaked our feet, and then began the steep climb out of the valley. There were some big steps climbing out of that valley, but like many of the hills before it, we were soon rewarded with a view that made it all worthwhile. Welcome to Spring Creek Bluff. Pressed onward and upward, continuing up the hill before soon crossing the road that leads down to the Spring Creek campground. We now had less than 6 miles to go before reaching the end. Continuing on, we were now atop Sitting Eddy Bluff, with only a thin line of juniper trees separating us from the cliff's edge. Hundreds of feet below and out in the distance is the Spring Creek campground and river access. We then make our way around the hill and drop down to river level. The sun was now behind the horizon. The sunset was beautiful, but we didn't have too much time to look at it. We had to keep moving east. We then climb a bit and then have a view looking out from Stair Step Bluff. Only about 2.5 more miles to go. We then descend again and cross Kimball Creek, where we take a little water break and dig out our headlamps for what's to come.
Ready? Yeah.
We then start the final stretch, climbing from Kimball Creek and into the dark abyss. With a wet weather front moving in, the clouds begin to block out the moon. The forest gets real dark here. We stay close together, keeping close eye on the trail. This ain't no time to get lost, not with storms rolling in.
Yeah.
Taking our time though, we make sure not to get in a rush. We round over the hill, hit a maintenance road, and then finally roll into Dillards Ferry, where we could see my car's reflectors shining under the light of our headlamps. What a sight to see. But by golly, we made it. We take a celebratory photo in the dark before loading up the car and heading back to Woolham, where we decide we'd spend the night. Naturally though, it barely rained on us, but that's okay. we completed the Lower Buffalo River Trail. The goal now was to make it to Harrison and to grab lunch at Western Sizzlin'. And that, my friends, is but a sample of the mighty and beautiful Lower Buffalo River Trail. I hope you enjoyed the journey. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing and liking the video. I hope to see you on the trail someday. Thanks for watching. And as always, remember to leave no trace.